Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Wednesday night. We're live, we're national, and the phone number is 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a couple of news items. Another busy news day. Lots going on, a lot of it coming out of our nation's capital with Senator John Thune being the winner of the vote for Majority Leader, Senator John Thune, as well as Donald Trump visiting the White House, a tale of two presidents, President Trump meeting with President Biden, having a seat in the Oval Office, fireplace was going, it was nice and cozy, they said lots of nice things to one another. It was really a thing. It was really a thing. And we have a little bit of a clip on that. Listen to this.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President,
thank you,
Donald, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And looking forward to having like we said, smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough. And it's, in many cases, not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. And a transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And they took a lot of pictures. Everybody was grinning from ear to ear. Honestly, it was really, it was like a love fest. It was nice to see, honestly. Talk about burying the hatchet, dialing back the rhetoric, turning down the temperature. All of that was done. Biden was the happiest guy there, I think, mainly because Kamala Harris is not going to be president. And John Thune was talking about that as well, how Americans rejected Harris and Schumer and their agenda, and how he's prepared to enact President Trump's agenda. Listen to this.
It's a new day in the United States Senate, and it's a new day in America. The American people have loudly rejected the failed policies of the Biden-Harris-Schumer agenda. And this Republican team is united. We are on one team. We are excited to reclaim the majority and to get to work with our colleagues in the House to enact President Trump's agenda. We have a mandate from the American people, a mandate not only to clean up the mess left by the Biden-Harris-Schumer agenda, but also to deliver on President Trump's priorities.
That is, again, Senator John Thune at the press conference today, announcing that he won the election and that he's going to be the incoming majority leader. And seems like everybody's all Trump all the time. Things are looking good for the MAGA movement in Washington thus far. And appointments time, right? There's a bunch of appointments, but the first of which was announced earlier today on the President's Truth Social. And we got a report from Fox News telling us exactly what President Trump had to say about his pick for Attorney General.
There had been some discussion that President-elect Trump was having a little trouble making this final decision, or maybe this is the person he had in mind all along. But he has now nominated Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as Attorney General of the United States. He just wrote this on Truth Social. Quote, Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, trained at William & Mary College of Law, distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. Few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department.
So that's the big news following the other items I mentioned, is that Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz chosen to be the nominee for Attorney General. Now he's got to face the Senate, and the question is, will he get confirmed? And I think this is a big deal, just like yesterday's announcement of Pete Hegseth also being, named as the president's choice to be nominated for Secretary of Defense. I think both excellent choices. Question is, I think Hegseth probably is going to have an easier time getting through. Gaetz, as we know, we've had him on this program, and he's shared, he's ruffled a few feathers in Washington. But that also means he probably has made a few friends and a few allies. So I don't know how it looks for him in the Senate. I would suspect that it should go off pretty easily, right? I can't imagine them trying to stop him from becoming Attorney General. But then again, stranger things have happened. So we'll see. But Gaetz would succeed Attorney General Merrick Garland if he's confirmed by the Senate. And he is currently resigned his position in order to accept this nomination here. He's also still the subject of an ongoing House ethics investigation about misconduct and drug use and things of that nature, the type of lawfare that he was subjected to, similar to what President Trump was subjected to, where they tried to weaponize the legal system to come after him because he was a political enemy. So he's, I think, an ideal person to bring about the type of change that they need at the Department of Justice. And there's plenty of others. I think that he could amass a nice little army of people to really redo the DOJ. Among them, who is it that's always on here? Great lawyer, Mike Davis, right, from the Article 3 Project. Another very, very strong contender. I've heard his name floated around a lot for this position, and others within the DOJ. I think this is a very, very solid choice for Attorney General, and I can't wait. I can't wait for Trump's fantasy football dream team. Right, that's what it looks like that he's putting together here to go ahead and turn things upside down in Washington. Again, Gaetz has now resigned his position in Congress, and he's ready to rock and roll. So that's that one. And let me see if there's another one. Oh, there's a few others that I wanted to share with you. Tulsi Gabbard has been chosen as Director of National Intelligence. As you know, she's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and as well as Pete Hegseth being a major in the Army, both Army National Guard. So no strangers to the military. Let me see what else we got here. John Thune, we did. Some Republican lawmakers are endorsing Lara Trump to replace future Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Senate representing Florida. So I think she'd also be an excellent choice. As we know, Chairman Whatley's doing a good job with his role as chairman and her role as co-chair. I think Senator Lara Trump has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? So we'll see what happens. Looks like there's a lot of backfilling in these conservative districts coming out of Florida. Thankfully, it's in Florida, and they likely will have some good conservatives to fill those roles. Anyway, I want to talk about immigration. I want to talk about Marco Rubio being selected as the nominee for Secretary of State, and a couple other things that I've got up my sleeve here. So keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
This originated as a prison gang inside of Venezuela. Then they spread to Ecuador and Chile and Peru and neighboring Colombia, neighboring countries. and basically joined up with other gangs to conduct these operations, particularly targeting Venezuelan migrant communities in those countries. And it was inevitable. It was just a matter of time before they joined the migratory flow and entered the United States. And now we are seeing them in communities in the United States where they're following the same patterns that they follow in these other places: murder for hire, extortion, human trafficking, drug running. They're basically a organized criminal organization, and a very violent one. And now their members are coming into the United States because there's more money to steal here and more people to go after here. So this has been a threat that's been building since February, and we know it. When we raised it, we were told that we were exaggerating and that it wasn't true. We're now seeing it play out in real time and in places you wouldn't expect, right? Aurora, Colorado. We initially saw this in New York and in Chicago as well. But I think it's going to continue to spread wherever there's targets of opportunity. They particularly like to target migrant communities with lots of migrants. That's where they first like to target. But obviously those crimes spread beyond that to purse snatching and anything else they can make money off of.
That, of course, Senator Marco Rubio talking about the Venezuelan transnational criminal organization known as El Tren de Aragua. And I think this has a part of the impetus for President Trump to pick him as Secretary of State is his understanding of things and the influx of immigration. And I want to get a better handle on that from our guest, because he's got some experience that's very unique to this. Alfonso Aguilar is the former chief of the Office of Citizenship, which was under the Department of Homeland Security. So he understands immigration from a very unique perspective, having been there on the front lines. He's also director of Hispanic engagement at the American Principles Project. Alfonso Aguilar, welcome back.
Rich, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And I want to get your thoughts here on Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, being selected to be the nominee for the position of Secretary of State. Your thoughts?
Well, I think Senator Rubio is a great choice. He's got a great deal of experience. He's been a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Senate for a long time, also a member of the Intelligence Committee. I think he's got a real clear understanding of the foreign threats and challenges that America faces. He understands Latin America very well. You were just listening to his comments about Tren de Aragua. He understands Tren de Aragua well because they've been terrorizing the region for a long time, and now they're here. So this is a person who can do really an incredible job as Secretary of State. He has a great relationship with President Trump, and I think it's a extraordinary choice for Secretary of State.
You know, I agree, and I think he's always had a very good understanding of what's going on in the Hispanic and Latin American countries. I think obviously because he's Cuban, but because he's kind of in the mix. And I remember of all the senators over the years that have opined on things like statehood for Puerto Rico, for example, he's been one that's been very vocal. And this was something that really, I guess it mattered to him because there's a big constituency of Puerto Ricans in Orlando. But outside of that, I think it was just something that he was naturally interested in. And it's something that continues to come about. And I think it's that understanding and being the fact that so much of our, I'm going to say diplomacy, international affairs right now has to do with this crisis, that there's a lot going on. So that being said, do you think that his opinion, which I think is he's pro-statehood, and that doesn't seem to be the flavor of the month with guys like McConnell and even Senator Ted Cruz and others in the Senate, do you think he'll be able to sway people? Do you think that's going to play a major role now that Puerto Rico seems to me that the resident commissioner, Jennifer Gonzalez, is going to become governor of Puerto Rico?
Not really. Look, I think Puerto Rico has some big challenges, but Puerto Rico at the end is a domestic issue, right? So he won't be dealing with Puerto Rico at the State Department. Right. I think that Puerto Rico has some economic challenges. People are leaving the island. I've seen polls that show that the majority of Puerto Ricans would like to leave the island because there are no economic opportunities. There's no economic growth. Government is too big. And frankly, the fixes for Puerto Rico's problems are to be found in the island. They've always expected Washington to resolve things for them. And at the end, that's just unreal. They really have a socialist economic and political model, which they have to change. And that means imploding the government apparatus, which is huge. It dates back to the New Deal. And they really haven't changed it. And so it's very difficult for new companies to start in Puerto Rico, for innovation to happen, for foreign investment to be attracted, because the government is so involved in every single transaction. The economy is overregulated. And so I think the change would have to start in the island. In terms of statehood, I think that, with the Electoral College as it is, Republicans have a legitimate concern that Puerto Rico would be a democratic state. They just had a symbolic vote, in the island for president, the first time they do this. It was just symbolic. And Kamala Harris won by a margin of 3-1, which is surprising. Does that mean that Puerto Ricans are liberal? Absolutely not. As you know, they're very conservative. But I think that the local Republican Party has to do a better job of organizing itself and including different sectors of society, like evangelicals who are very active in the island and very conservative, and build really a populist conservative movement in the island. I think the island needs like a Javier Milei from Argentina, right? Somebody like that is willing to challenge the system, because what we have in the island is the traditional parties are parties that are establishment. They respond to big interests, to a few economic interests that like to control monopolies in the island, and then the majority of the people have a hard time just surviving. So they can't find jobs. They live check to check. So that's why so many are leaving the island. So they need to do something to change things around and grow the middle class. But that's not going to happen if they continue with, as I've said, with this model. I mean, I think over 50% of Puerto Ricans receive some form of welfare. That's just not the type of environment that is sustainable. Absolutely. So until that continues, state is very difficult. Republicans are concerned, obviously, that it will be a democratic state, and that would definitely have an impact in terms of the Electoral College. So I think they have to do a better job, show that they would be a Republican state or they would be a swing state, which I think it's possible. But for that, the Republican Party the local Republican Party has to organize itself and grow the Republican base there, and show Republicans that they can vote for Republican presidents. Look, the incoming governor, the resident commissioner, is a Republican, right?
Right.
We've had Republican.
Do you think that's a step in the right direction?
Well, I think it is, but again, I think more has to be done. I think in terms of showing that Puerto Rico can elect a Republican president, and also showing that they're willing to support conservative policies in the island. And that begins by transforming government.
Folks, we're coming right back with Alfonso Aguilar. We're going to continue our discussion on Marco Rubio, plus Tom Homan selected as the new border czar. All of that and more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Tom, the last person who was border czar, she didn't want to be called border czar. You're proud of it, right?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to look like a genius, because when you follow failure, you can't help but succeed, right?
Yeah.
Look, to the American people, President Trump is going to secure this border. He's going to save American lives. He's going to, by securing the border, we're going to drop illegal alien crime, which is skyrocketing.
Yep.
Well, less people are going to die from fentanyl. Less children are going to be sex trafficked. Less women will be sex assaulted on the southern border. The criminal cartels will be put out of business by this president.
That, of course, is Tom Homan, former director of ICE, spent 34 years with the Border Patrol and President Trump's choice for border czar. Our guest is Alfonso Aguilar. He's former chief of the Office of Citizenship. That's within the Department of Homeland Security. He's currently the director of Hispanic engagement for the American Principles Project. And Alfonso, Tom Homan, I think most people are very happy. What say you?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's an extraordinary choice, truly understands the migration problem, the challenges of the border. And, I think from on day one, the Trump administration is going to shut down the border. They have the authority under the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212F. They can shut it down, and they can immediately move to begin to detain and remove people. It's a difficult job, but if somebody can lead that effort, is Tom Homan. And as he said, we need to, we can do it in a humane way, because obviously we know that the left is going to start saying that we're violating human rights and we're being cruel and all of that. And that's just nonsense. I think that, as Tom Homan has already said this past days, we can do this in a fair, humane way. In the case of families, if they're the family unit is illegal, we can detain them together and remove them together. But we have to send a clear message that the jig is up. If you think you can come to the southern border, just surrender yourself to ICE and say that you're afraid of being persecuted in the country, knowing that you're going to be let in and released into the general community, that's not going to happen anymore. And I think what we're going to see on as we get close to January 20th, the numbers of people arriving illegally at the southern border go down dramatically. So then we have obviously the issue of what to do with those who've just arrived, who arrived in the past 3 years. Primarily, as the president and Tom Homan have said, focus primarily on those criminals like members of Tren de Aragua. And a lot of these people, once they're here, they're putting, they're released, but they're putting in removal proceedings. So to remove them, they have to have a hearing before an immigration judge. So we're going to, and we don't have enough immigration judges. So I think for the criminals, we're going to have to quickly figure out a way to get them through the process quickly so we can get them quickly before an immigration judge and get them out of the country. So I think there are many things that can be done immediately, administratively, but certainly legislation could help to provide more resources at the border and to hire more immigration judges.
What do you think the holdup has been to get these immigration judges? It's been a shortage of them, I don't know, most of my adult life. So I'm wondering, like, what is the holdup?
Well, it's just that every time we try to do something to beef up security, Democrats are trying to push some sort of amnesty, right? And I think at this time we have to look. We can't discuss anything else about immigration. At this point, the only thing we can talk about is securing the border, achieving operational control of the border, and removing criminal elements from the country. That's priority. Once that is done, then we can have a broader discussion. But that's a problem, that every time you have discussion of immigration to bolster border security and to hire immigration judges, Democrats always want to include something else to somehow legalize illegal immigrants. And we just can't have that conversation at this point. I think that, with the Republicans controlling House and Senate, I think we're in a good position, perhaps even through the appropriations process, to get money to hire more immigration judges. But let me tell you something. Even if we were to double the number of immigration judges, we're never going to have enough judges to deal timely with this massive number of migrants. It's just impossible. That's why it's so important to shut the border. We just can't. We're never going to have enough judges to process everyone. And I suspect that the administration knew that. That's why Attorney General Garland instructed his people to put an end to those cases, those removal cases of migrants who didn't have criminal records. When they dismiss those cases, those individuals are not giving status, but they remain here indefinitely.
Right.
So that's why we just don't have enough judges to take care of the numbers that we're talking about. So we have to reduce dramatically, dissuade those people from making that trip to the border. That's why we have to put in place, again, things like migration protection protocols, so the so-called Remain in Mexico policy. We have to expand the wall system to send a clear message: don't make the trip because you're not going to be allowed in. And also then expand detention because we don't have enough detention capacity. This administration closed down immigration, many detention centers, so we're going to have to reopen them. We're going to have to build new ones, immigration centers in different places of the country. So as we detain people, we can hold them until they're fully processed and then removed. But we have to stop catch and release, so people understand that even if you get in, you're not going to be set free. You're going to be detained.
Yeah. Now, Alfonso Aguilar, again, folks, is our guest, former chief of the Office of Citizenship in Department of Homeland Security. And just to understand this, because I really I think this is a question a lot of people have. The left is running a lot of their own propaganda saying, if you're Hispanic, be prepared to be deported. Your grandmother's being deported, irrespective of one's legal status, whether you're a citizen or not, they're coming after you. And I think this is what they're pushing on people. What do you think there's something in place to kind of allay some of those concerns?
Well, first of all, let me say it's very condescending when we hear Ana Navarro and the View say things like that. They're coming after your abuela, your grandma.
Yeah.
First of all, the majority of Hispanics are not illegal or don't have illegal relatives.
Right.
Some do, but not the majority. So let's be clear about that. Now, again, I think that we have to wait for the details of the plan. But what I'm hearing from the president and from Homan, even publicly, is that they're going to go after the criminals initially, members of Tren de Aragua, other criminals that arrived in the country because they were not vetted properly. I think that's what they're focusing on. Obviously, Democrats, look, they're going to follow the playbook of the first Trump administration, where they said that Trump was separating families and he was putting kids in cages.
Starting World War III, yeah.
Exactly. So they're going to exaggerate that, say these are human rights violations, and that's why I think it's very important for the administration to get in front and be clear about what's being done. When you're in government, it's not enough to put forward good policy. You also need the buy-in of the American people. And I think President Trump won partly because of the immigration issue, and the majority of Americans now support deportation. But as you know, the left is very crafty in working with legacy media to try to change public opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's just so important as these efforts begin to communicate clearly with the American public and show that this is a humanitarian, a humane process that seeks to disrupt this massive migration wave that puts our national security at risk. It's also has created a health crisis because of the fentanyl, And it's also a humanitarian crisis because it encourages millions of people to make a very dangerous trek to our southern border. As Tom Homan was saying, that clip that you just ran, the massive migration facilitates the trafficking of children. Women and girls are raped or victims of sexual assault. So we want to put an end to that. It's not a message against immigrants. If you want to come here, come legally. But this massive unregulated wave of migration has to stop. But it's not good for Americans. It's not good for the migrants themselves.
Really well put. Alfonso Aguilar, I want you to take a minute, if you can, very quickly, and let everybody know how they can check out the work that you're doing at the American Principles Project.
Well, I think they can visit our webpage, AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. You can also see my post on X at Amigo Aguilar. That's the best way to follow me.
Fantastic. Brother, I want to thank you for being here. Always a great conversation. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot.
All righty. Thank you so much for having me, Rich. Take care.
You bet. All right, amigos, we continue our conversation straight ahead. Plus, your calls are coming up, open phones across America, and the final segment of each hour, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And look, I've seen some of these Democratic governors say they're going to stand in the way. They're going to make it hard for us. Well, a suggestion: if you're not going to help us, get the hell out of the way, if we're going to do it. So if we can't get assistance from New York City, and we may have to double the number of agents we send to New York City because we're going to do the job. We're going to do the job without you or with you. But it's much easier to arrest a bad guy. Like I just said, we're concentrating on public safety threats of human and national security threats. Right. It's much easier to arrest a bad guy in the jail. Give us access to Rikers Island that we've been kicked out of. Let us get the bad guy in the jail. It's safer for the alien. It's safer for the officer. It's safer for the community.
That, of course, is the newly named border czar, Tom Homan, saying, look, if you're not going to help us, get out of the way. And, of course, you've got, he mentioned New York City. He mentioned Democrat governors. And we've got clips from both from the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and from the governor of Illinois, right? That's where he's from. I think that's where he's from, J.B. Pritzker. And I want you to listen to this first clip from Mayor Eric Adams because it seems like he's changing his tune a little bit.
And as you communicate with President-elect Trump and have communicated with him, will you express concern about mass deportations in the city?
My concern is one concern, and we keep tinkering around the edges. We keep having this philosophical conversation about it. The voters communicated loudly and clearly. We have a broken immigration system. It needs to be fixed. That's the only conversation I want. It's broken. It needs to be fixed. And New York City was devastated by that broken system. 220,000 migrants and asylum seekers have made their way here. No financial assistance from the administration. I think it was about $200 and something million with billions of dollars we had to pay for. I don't want to see that happen again. I don't want what's taking place in Chicago, in Denver, Los Angeles, Houston. I don't want to see it take place again. Let's fix our immigration system. Anything other than that, I'm not interested in that conversation.
He's not interested in the conversation, neither am I. And I think Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, is singing a different tune because he realizes he's in over his head. His friends don't like him. His police commissioner was corrupt and was just indicted. He's got lots and lots of drama, and the last thing he needs is more migrants and more problems in his city. So he needs to get in good with Trump and fix his issues because it doesn't look good for his future politically if he doesn't. But J.B. Pritzker. He's got a whole different story that he's singing. Eric Adams mentioned Chicago, and you know what? Chicago does have a lot of problems, as does a lot of these other sanctuary states. Listen to what Pritzker had to say.
We also want to make sure that there isn't a violation of people's rights with, raids, for example, that are done in coordination with local law enforcement on people who are, frankly, holding down jobs and have been in this country for many, many years. We think that's improper. And in Illinois, that's not something that we would condone. There's been some talk about using other states' National Guard, red state National Guards to somehow come into a blue state and try and enforce these new Stephen Miller-inspired rules. And that's just not something we're going to accept.
Shots fired at the homie Stephen Miller. Anyway, looks like Pritzker doesn't want to play ball with the Trump administration and their policies from the newly minted Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. So what is going to happen? I would suspect that they're going to be a little bit nicer to Eric Adams, and he's going to get a little bit more of what he needs in order to keep New York City safe. And if Pritzker gets in the way and prevents the help from coming and doesn't allow the cavalry to do what they came to do, he's going to put his people in harm's way, because that's what happens if there's a fire truck on the way to a fire and you tell them they can't come, you're not going to have the firefighters you need, right? It's that simple. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this, your calls and more, 833-482-5337. I see we've got calls from Ohio, South Carolina, Idaho, and more coming in. I'm going to take a quick pause right here, coming right back to your calls.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. To the phones we go, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's check in with Debbie, Canton, Ohio, WNIR. Go for it.
Are
Debbie,
you there?
We're all
Rich?
waiting for you. All right, let's go to
yes.
Van, Columbia, South Carolina, listening online. Van, go right ahead.
Hey, Mr. Valdez, how you been?
Wonderful,
Yeah,
thank you.
I just heard your last guest, but then I got anyway, look, you think Huckabee's cool to go over to Israel? Because that's a big deal, man. I mean, we keep talking about
let me ask you, if it's such a big deal, name the last 2 or 3 United States ambassadors to Israel.
That doesn't matter, man. There's a war going on.
My point is,
kind of question
if
is
you
that,
can't name
dude?
the last 2 or 3, how bad is Mike Huckabee going to be?
No, I'm not saying he's going to be bad, man. I'm going to say, look, all this stuff about Trump's appointing all these people, yeah, but the one thing Mr. Trump did wrong, he kept saying what he's going to do. Okay, it's very serious, Mr. Valdez. What's going on?
So you want him to keep it a
Israel.
secret?
What?
You want him to
didn't hear
keep it
you.
a secret?
Well, to some people, yeah. No, man.
Well,
this
how
is
would we know
serious.
who's serving us in the government?
We don't know yet. We got a butthead in the government right now, man. We don't know who's serving right now. We got a couple months.
That's not what
They're
we're talking
scared.
about. We're talking about the incoming president who's going to take office on January 20th, and he's announcing the people that are going to be on his team. And you're saying he shouldn't do that.
No. I'm sorry. I got a disarray there. I'll tell you, he's saying how many heads he's going to cut in the government, man. And these generals are stupid, okay?
God, I'm missing your point completely and entirely. I don't understand what you're telling me. Van, we're out of time. Thanks for the call. We'll try again next hour. Let's get straight to the point so you can get on with America. Folks, coming right back. Rich Valdez, America at Night. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Wednesday night. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation. It's 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a couple of things. We talked about the big news of the day, right? The big news is Trump makes his way to Washington. He sits down with Joe El Baboso Biden. He also made his way over to Capitol Hill, and he shared a few remarks there, and maybe I'll get into that in a moment. But he also made some interesting appointments today. He continues to name his dream team here, and today he's announced Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, and Senator John Thune, again, just repeating what I mentioned a little while ago, that Senator John Thune is to be the next Senate Majority Leader after the vote this morning in the Senate. So what does all this mean? Well, I think a lot of this stuff is, par for the course, right? It's just a lot of it's protocol. But some people are taking exception, right? And just to reference a caller that called in and said that, we can't be telegraphing what we're doing. Now, I'm not sure I understood exactly what he was saying, but I do know that I think the idea of Trump's presidency is to be the antithesis of what people have been used to. And I think that's why it's refreshing to a lot of his loyalists to the core, right? His core group of support. And new ones coming on board, hopefully appreciate it as well. But the fact that this is not, hey, look, I know better than everybody. This is, I'm talking to you, I'm listening to you, and we're going to do this together type of approach. For example, Trump's victory speech. He gets on stage, he brings 100 people with him. That's the way you do it. I think that was very symbolic, and it was a classic moment where he brought on his squad, if you will. And I thought that was said a lot to me about how he's not doing this alone. He's not this one-man show that I think we oftentimes make him out to be. He's a machine. He's remarkable. Yes, all true. But at the same time, there's 75 million Americans that have his back. There's 100 campaign staffers and thousands of others that are going to, serve at the pleasure of the president to help him get this vision executed for the Make America Great agenda to come to fruition. Without that, we're dead in the water. So I think we have to do some of that. And I think he spent a little bit of time today. And I've got a clip. It's a little on the longer side, but I didn't want to eliminate the context. But we have a clip of him addressing Republicans in Congress today. And I thought he really, really kind of, he shared some platitudes and he gave some shout outs. But ultimately, he sets a clear vision here for winning and what the future looks like. Listen to this.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very nice gathering. Isn't it nice to win? It's nice to win. It's always nice to win. A lot of good friends in this room. So we had like historic kind of numbers, especially for the president, but we won't get into that. But the House did very well, and I think we're responsible for 31, helping you with 31, meaning we could have lost by quite a bit, and we ended up, I guess you'll be 5 up. Are you looking at 5 or 4? 5 or 4, right? Doesn't matter. We get used to 1 for a little while. When you can get used to 1, you can get used to anything. So I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. We worked with a lot of you to get you in, and you helped me, and you helped me too. and my numbers were, so they say, the 129 years, the most important election in 129 years. That's pretty good. I said, who is the 129 years? What was that, Doc Ronnie? Who was 129 years ago? I'd never looked.
Now, of course, President Trump goes on. He talks about, how he's done so well, and he has, and good for him. I always say there's nothing wrong with breaking your arm as long as you're patting yourself on the back, and you should. I think he's got a lot to be proud of here. We all do. So kudos to El Trompito, and he's working with Congress there, at least the members of the House in that particular press conference. But there was another press conference earlier today with Senator John Thune, who won his election to become the Senate Majority Leader. And he was asked about recess appointments. Listen to this.
Leader Thune, you said that recess appointments are on the table. That's a key demand from President-elect Donald Trump. Will you move forward with that?
Well, what we're going to do is make sure that we are processing his nominees in a way that gets them into those positions so they can implement his agenda. How that happens remains to be seen. Obviously, we want to make sure our committees have confirmation hearings like they typically do, and that these nominees report it out to the floor. But I've said this, and I mean it, that we expect a level of cooperation from the Democrats to work with us to get these folks installed. And obviously, we're going to look at explore all options to make sure that they get moved and that they get moved quickly.
That, again, Senator John Thune, the new incoming Senate Majority Leader. And there was more, right? There was some testimony on Capitol Hill today about something you and I probably know as UFOs, but I think now they're called unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP. And I find this to be interesting because it just is, right? I think generally this is a pretty interesting thing. But retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet was testifying on Capitol Hill, and he says he believes that unidentified aerial phenomena or anomalous phenomena are real, and there's something that we need to pay attention to. Listen to this.
Confirmation that UAPs are real came to me in January of 2015 when I was serving as the commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command. At the time, my personnel were participating in a pre-deployment naval exercise off the U.S. East Coast. It included the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group, and this exercise was overseen by the United States Fleet Forces Command, led by a 4-star admiral who at the time was also my superior officer. During this exercise, I received an email on the Navy's secure network from the operations officer of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. The email was addressed to all the subordinate commanders, and the subject line read in all capital letters, "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue." The text of the email was brief but alarming, with words to the effect, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having multiple near mid-air collisions, and if we do not resolve this soon, we are going to have to shut down the exercise." Attached to the email is what is now known as the Go Fast video, captured on the forward-looking infrared sensor of one of the Navy F-A-18 aircraft participating in the exercise. The now declassified video showed an unidentified object exhibiting flight and structural characteristics unlike anything in our arsenal.
So we're going to have some conversation a little bit later on UAPs and all of that stuff, because I want to get to the bottom of that. I also want to, continue to take a look at some of these appointments. We've got Mike Huckabee, governor of Arkansas, former governor of Arkansas, being appointed as ambassador to Israel. I think Mike Huckabee, I supported Mike Huckabee big time when he ran for president. I think he would have made an amazing president. I think he's an amazing talk show host. I think the guy's terrific through and through. And we've also got the appointment of Matt Gaetz. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. Plus, we're going to talk about the UAEs and a little bit more of that. Not the UAEs, the UAPs, a little bit after that. So keep it locked right here. We're coming right back. More to come straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President-elect Donald Trump continues to fill positions for his incoming administration with the late bombshell announcement of Congressman Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Trump also officially named Florida Senator Marco Rubio as his pick for Secretary of State Wednesday and Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. All of Trump's cabinet picks will have to undergo Senate confirmation in the coming weeks.
That's Jessica Moore from CBS 2 in New York. And again, big deal. Congressman Matt Gaetz stepping down from his position in Congress to accept this nomination, this acknowledgement from President Trump to be Attorney General. And we've got Mike Huckabee being named as ambassador to Israel, and lots of really interesting appointments that are coming out of the transition team. And I want to get some reaction to that from Joel Griffith. He's a research fellow at the Roe Institute for Economic Policy Studies. Joel Griffith, welcome.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me on tonight. Love your show.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. And tell me your thoughts on Matt Gaetz.
Well, it's definitely an interesting pick. It's not one that many people expected. In fact, I had not.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming.
That possibility. Without a doubt, he would bring a level of shakeup to the Department of Justice. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty, of course, whether or not he'll actually be confirmed by the Senate. There, quite a bit of people have expressed concerns that 4 years ago he promoted a constitutional theory that the vice president could send back or reject electors from the states that had been certified by the states, and that was a constitutional theory that just flatly was inaccurate, and thankfully the vice president fulfilled his oath of office. So we'll see where that heads. There's no doubt that the Department of Justice does need, at the very least, some restructuring. There's been a lot of politically motivated, I believe, attacks by the current Department of Justice, and I'm confident that whoever ends up installed and approved by the Senate, nominated by the President, of course, the Department of Justice, will be a marked improvement over what we currently have with the Harris administration.
Yeah. Merrick Garland, definitely the king of lawfare. And when it comes to this appointment of former Governor Huckabee as ambassador to Israel, your thoughts?
Wow. Well, I am a huge fan of former Governor Huckabee. Of all the wonderful picks that soon-to-be President Trump has selected, I think, Mike Huckabee might be near the top. I'm proudly Jewish, proudly American, proudly Zionist, and there are few people who have been as good of a friend to the Jewish people in the state of Israel as Mike Huckabee. He recognizes the biblical attachment to the land that the Jewish people have. He recognizes their right to self-defense, and he recognizes, very importantly, that the Jewish people have a right to live in their indigenous homeland in Judea and Samaria, commonly referred to as the West Bank. They have a right to live there. And I'll tell you what, I've got hundreds of Jewish friends, and nearly all of them that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to many of them this past few days, they are ecstatic that President Trump has selected Mike Huckabee to be the next ambassador to Israel.
Yeah. And do you expect any opposition for Governor Huckabee in the confirmation process?
I think he's going to be, I'm certainly hopeful that he'll be easily confirmed. There have been some rumblings amongst some on the left that he is not going to be favorable enough to the Palestinians. But here's the deal with Governor Huckabee. He recognizes that the obstacle to peace in the Mideast, including the obstacle to Palestinians living good lives, the obstacle there is Hamas and Hezbollah and the other Iran proxies that have subjugated these populations to terrorist leaders within their midst. And the way to actually help everyone achieve a peaceful life is for Israel to finally eradicate Hamas and eradicate Hezbollah. And I do believe that he'll end up with some Democrats supporting him as well in that nomination process.
Now, Joel, let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with some of the work that you're doing with the Institute for Economic Policy Studies.
If you go to heritage.org, just key in my name, Joel Griffith, or any economic issue you're interested in, and you'll see my writings along with writings of many of my colleagues on any of those topics. And I know we're talking about the nominations tonight that President Trump has made, but I'm really hopeful that the president will be pursuing pro-growth economic policies. You know, we are suffering. Families have suffered from a decline in real income and the priciest housing market in not just our lifetimes, but in American history. American families are desperate for help right now, and I'm hoping that he will unleash those animal spirits and he'll unleash the ability of businesses to grow rapidly once again.
Outstanding. You and me both. Joel Griffith, Research Fellow at the Thomas Roe Institute for Economic Policy Studies, Heritage Foundation. Joel, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
You bet. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of speculation about who gets this and who gets that, you know, with terms of confirmation. And I think by and large, the confirmation process is, you know, the advice and consent of the Senate has always been just that, you know. If they're not a detriment, you go for it. It's kind of always been the collegiality they've had. Now, I understand that we're testing the norms and the and customs of what, you know, was once considered collegiality or bipartisanship. A lot of that stuff is taboo now. It's like, no, we should be at each other's throats and hate each other. And we saw how that played out in the last Trump administration, where they wouldn't allow him any appointments and everybody was acting in their position. And again, I think it, you know, it had a minimal impact on some and some impact on others. But ultimately, you got to give the president the team that he wants, unless they're, you know, trying to bring in some of the people like those that Harris and Biden had, right? Some of the people that they had, in, like the woman who was a spy for Iran and the guy that was a spy for Iran that were working with the think tank and things like that. These people at the Department of State, rather, these people are the people you want to watch out for. And I think Trump's short list here are people that are relatively known, right? I don't think he's picking a ton of unknown people. I mean, there still might be some appointments that we're not aware of, but by and large, I think that's how it goes. But anyway, I think it was great to see the grin on Biden's face as he welcomed President Trump. I think even he's relieved, you know, like, oh, thank God this guy's back. You know, I think that's why he put on the red Trump hat not too long ago when he was at that event, kind of signaling, you know, I'm not with Harris. Maybe that's my tinfoil hat, maybe not. But either way, happy about the win and happy about the outcome. Anyway, straight ahead, we have more conversation on today's hearings on the unidentified anomalous objects, or whatever they're called, phenomena, UAP. And, of course, open phones across America at the end of each hour. We'll be doing that as well. And more conversation analysis and audio, because I invite the libs, but they don't always come on the show. So we have some clips of them, too. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez coming right back.
Well, you're a true patriot and a Latino voice. We need more of you in America. And keep up your good work, Rich.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. Many of my former colleagues and I have provided classified testimony to both the Department of Defense and the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and many of us have subsequently been targeted by this cabal with threats to our careers, our security clearances, and even our lives.
So that is Luis Elizondo. He's a former Department of Defense official giving his testimony today on Capitol Hill alongside retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who retired from the U.S. Navy and is now the CEO of Ocean STL Consulting. And you've heard both of these clips that we've played, and I've got a few more. But interesting stuff, right? This guy, Elizondo, says that he's been targeted for drawing attention to UAPs, these unidentified anomalous phenomena. So I want to get to the bottom of this with somebody who's written extensively on the matter. L.A. Marzulli is the author of Rungs of Disclosure, Following the Trail of Extraterrestrials and the End Times. Mr. Marzulli, welcome.
Oh, yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yep. So I want to get your thoughts on the hearings that were held in the House of Representatives today with respect to UAPs and the testimony that you just heard.
I saw a lot of it. I watched most of it, and because it's on delay, you can pick it up and sort of watch 20 minutes at a time, whatever. I thought it moved the ball forward on some level. On the other hand, it really didn't reveal anything new. The whistleblowers, the people were there. You quoted Luis Elizondo. I've read his book, Eminent. I've been following him for years. He's a real stand-up guy. He's risked everything to try to bring this to the forefront. The bottom line is he's right. There is a active presence, unseen actors that we don't know who they are, that are in control of a dialogue on some level and are putting the kibosh on things, withholding information from the American people. As a ufologist, I've been following this literally for decades. So nothing that was said today was new to me. I mean, nothing, including the underwater, USOs, underwater submersible objects, whatever. I mean, I've heard about this, and they were quoting some of the stuff that I live on the West Coast, outside of Los Angeles, and in front of me, when I go down my canyon, I live in the Santa Monica Mountains, one of the largest, deepest trenches in the world sits there. And I haven't seen them personally, but UFOs come in and out of that water constantly.
What's the explanation behind that? Is there an official or an unofficial explanation for what you're seeing?
No, not really. I mean, remember, this goes back to 1947, the Roswell crash, when the Roswell Daily Paper said the RAAF recovered a UFO, a flying saucer. That was July 8th. July 9th, they completely redacted that. Oh, it's just a weather balloon. That sets the standard. That sets the dialogue. That sets the paradigm in stone until 2017, when Commander David Fravor appears on Tucker Carlson's show, and the title of the book is Rungs of Disclosure. That's the first rung on the ladder of disclosure. Commander David Fravor is a former F-18 fighter pilot, stand-up guy, the best of the best of the best. He encounters this tic-tac-shaped object, which was tracked by radar for over 2 weeks. He encounters this thing, he engages the thing, it shuts off his radar, and then this thing shoots away. You're talking 50 miles in 2 seconds. The G-forces here would obliterate a human being. So the craft is unlike anything on this earth, and that's what he states on the record. When Tucker asks him, what do you think this was? And he looks right at the camera. He says, whatever this was not from this earth, because this entity, this tic-tac-shaped object with no wings, no tail wings, no rotor wash, nothing, is manipulating and bending space and time through some sort of gravity propulsion wave. We know this from Bob Lazar, who worked at Area 51 and was a whistleblower way back in the 90s. So, today it sort of sets the stage for what may or may not happen. The bottom line is, the phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. I call it the Great Deception. I think that these entities have been around for a very long time, but they are manifesting in ways we've never seen. And there's something I talk about. 1945 is Hiroshima, Nagasaki. That's when we see the Foo Fighters. 1947 is the Roswell crash. The Roswell crash is outside of the 509th Bombing Group stationed in Roswell. The 509th was the bombing group that dropped Hiroshima, the atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 1948 is Israel. That's the end time clock. That starts everything ticking. And here we are. That's when the whole UFO phenomena really begins to take off after 48. Then we start to see the abductions, the crop circles, the cattle mutilations, everything goes through the roof. We have 10 films on this. 10 films on this. But the book gets into it. It talks about the abductions, the cattle mutilations, the crop circles, the different rungs of disclosure. Brett Baer on Fox News states on the record that some women who are taken aboard UFOs find themselves pregnant. Well, I'm not shocked by this because it all goes back to the seed war. And there's a scripture in the biblical prophetic narrative, Daniel 2:43, which states this: their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. The word cleave is the word that we get for marriage. There is no marriage contract here. They're taking the women, they're impregnating the women, they're creating hybrid beings. Jesus warns us that it'll be like the days of Noah. What differentiates the days of Noah? The fact that the Nephilim are on the earth. Who are the Nephilim? The progeny of the fallen angels and human women, creating a entity which is essentially soulless. This is the reason for the flood. Look, I got 15, 20 minutes with you at max. This is a very deep subject. I've already plunged your audience into the deep end of the pool. Some of your folks are probably saying, what is this guy talking about? This is a very deep, dark subject. These entities, in my opinion, are absolutely nefarious. They have a very dark agenda. The breeding program hails back into the biblical prophetic narrative and scripture, and it's all in the Rungs of Disclosure, LAMarzulli.com.
Folks, if you want to get a copy of the book, check out M.A. Marzulli's book, Rungs of Disclosure, Following the Trail of Extraterrestrials and the End Times. Mr. Marzulli, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you.
You got it. And, folks, we come back. Your thoughts, your calls, and more clips from the news of the day. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So the media, the left, and the Never Trumpers are, you know, as they say, tienen el moño virado, right? Their ponytails are in a twist. They got their panties in a bunch. They're very upset with the selection of Pete Hegseth and others to Trump's administration and his cabinet. And the choice that President Trump has made with respect to Pete Hegseth has one particular person up in arms. This person, again, I give you the most sophisticated Spanish word I know for how I can describe him, is Adam Kinzinger. The word is pendejo. And Adam Kinzinger weighs in on Pete Hegseth, retired major, United States Army National Guard. Listen to this.
Obviously, it's weird, and there's only one reason he's doing it, because he's on Fox News, and you know that's what Donald Trump picks based on. I know Pete, like I haven't talked to him actually much recently, but I know him, and particularly prior to his life in Fox News. And he actually is very smart when it comes to things like defense policy. He used to, I remember his last deployment to Afghanistan, he actually was putting out this kind of newsletter he would do every week or so, filling folks in. But the question is, what kind of Pete Hegseth is going to show up? That one, or is it going to be the Pete Hegseth that's on Fox News that just tries to be loyal to Donald Trump? And that's why he was picked, because of his loyalty.
Well, like I said, Adam Kinzinger, not the brightest guy here, out of a job, not very popular, but still gets a shot at sharing his peddling his goods, right? And even let him peddle them here on this program because, sometimes there's some humor, there's some shock value, whatever it is. In this one, I think it was just to juxtapose a good decision versus a bad decision and the reaction from each side. However, he says Pete Hegseth is smart with defense policy. I'm going to agree with that because a colleague of ours here at the Cumulus Podcast Network, Sean Ryan, great podcast, by the way, we had him on the show here, and he had Pete on his show. And I've got a clip of Pete Hegseth on the Sean Ryan show where he actually shares some of his thoughts, which are very clear-cut. Whether you like them or not is irrespective, but they're decisive and they're clear. Check this out.
How would they correct it? Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke, it's got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. That's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to serve because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I at least, for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
That's Pete Hegseth, folks, and I think he's spot on. Everybody that we've talked to on that topic of wokeism in the military, they all said the same thing. There's a problem. It's rotting away at the patriotism and the quite frankly, the bravado, the manliness that goes along with it. And that's not a sexist statement against women. I'm talking about the men that are the only ones that are allowed to serve on the front lines, right? I think they made some changes not that long ago, but they're still not on the front lines. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But as I understood, that wasn't the case. So that's what I'm talking about. You've got those that are on the front line that are ill-equipped, and we need them to be more equipped. And, of course, big kudos to all the women that serve in the military. Not a slight in them at all. And I think Pete Hegseth would do a great job, and his ideas are great, whether it's in an advisory role or a secretary or whatever. I think the guy has a lot to offer. But Kinzinger, with his, I don't know which Pete Hegseth you get. I mean, I think that's silly. I think it's silly because, I get on the radio every day, and sometimes I'm serious. Sometimes it's a more serious interview. Sometimes it's commentary that's a little bit funny. I'm silly, whatever. I don't think any one of these defines me as either being a very serious person or a very unserious person. I think, you have ebbs and flows. So to say you don't know which one you get, of course, the guy's a professional broadcaster. He's got a great show on the weekends. To say that you don't know which one's going to show up when he was a soldier in Afghanistan, who do you think showed up to that? Adam Kinzinger. Do you think the Fox News host showed up to that? Or do you think the American hero that had to do what he had to do showed up? Exactly. So stop being a pendejo, Adam Kinzinger, and trying to make these false dichotomies, these false juxtapositions where you compare things that aren't, right? These false equivalencies, they do a disservice to those of us that are listening to you, lamentably, and they do a disservice to yourself and to how people are going to judge you and your ability to be fair and to make coherent statements. So be guided accordingly, sir. Anyway, folks, coming right back. I'm going to grab a couple of calls. Open phones across America. It's coming up in the next segment, and then we'll continue that in the third hour, plus more clips and more. And again, I may have said it yesterday, but we're going to be adding more calls into every single hour of the program because I don't want to leave them all for the third hour of the show, because, there's a lot to discuss throughout the 3 hours of the program, and we don't want to jam them all in at the end. Plus, we might want to, bring in another guest if there's a big newsmaker. Now that we have a new administration, there might be a lot of news coming out of Washington with an administration that's pledged to move very, very quickly. So I want to make sure we're able to keep up to speed with that while not neglecting any of our callers. So spreading them out throughout the 3 hours as opposed to concentrating them in the third hour. So thank you for that. Thanks for your patience. Folks are coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you for the next hour, and we're going to go through some of your calls, get lots of opinions from everybody all across the country. We're going to check back in with Debbie from Canton, Ohio, WNIR. She wants to weigh in on family and the holidays.
Rich.
Debbie, go right ahead. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you. You're my bane. I should be sleeping, but I'm listening to you.
Well, thank you.
Here's the thing. There's no problem to this year holiday-wise, because I took an exit poll. 88% of my family did not vote for Trump.
88%.
12% did. Yeah, 12% out of my circle of family and friends. All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to be fine, because we're just going to have a fun time celebrating holiday or whatever. I just want to mention the 12% that did vote for Trump. One is in jail right now for sexual abuse of a child, and the other one.
Did he get arrested after Election Day?
I'm just saying,
No, but I'm saying, did he get? You can't vote from jail.
Okay. And my prayers do go out to the nation, Rich. Really, I'm not joking. Prayers to the nation.
I would hope we never joke about that. Yeah, we definitely need prayers for the nation. And back to the people that were arrested for whatever they were arrested for. Did they get arrested after Election Day?
Oh no, they already we knew they were Trumpers before that. So
they weren't able to vote because they were in jail.
No, well, one's in jail, one's not.
Got it. All right. Well,
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm kind of interested because I listen to your show all the time, and I love you.
Thank
love
you.
listening. You say Rich Valdez with an S.
Yes.
What's that mean? Like, what's the deal?
Oftentimes people misspell my last name with a Z. So I just let them know that it's with an S. That way it's easier to find me. And that's it. Because, in this business, it's all about, people knowing who you are so that they can find your show and listen to your podcast and follow you on social media and check out your YouTube and all of that. Debbie and Canton, thank you. Folks are coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And President Trump was in the White House today. I can only imagine he walked in saying, "Excuse me, Joe, excuse me. This is my house." And, tell him, "Don't get comfortable. Take those drapes with you." I'm kidding. He went, and it was actually a very gracious exchange. And some members of the press corps had some questions about whether it was a good exchange and whether or not there were some apologies issued. KJP fired back. Listen to this.
In the meeting, we saw a unified front related to a transition in the Oval Office meeting. But a lot was said on the campaign trail, like Trump is a dangerous threat to our country and our democracy. Was there an apology today?
I'm sorry?
Was there an apology from
President
Biden for the words, some of the words used?
An apology from the President Biden.
To President-elect Trump for some of the words that was used on the campaign trail.
Look. And I've answered this a couple of times about a threat to democracy in the past week. The president is going to always feel obligated to be honest with the American people. What he says still stands. And it's not just him. You heard this from former staffers. You've heard it from the former chief of staff, John Kelly, and others. You've heard it directly from the president-elect, the former president, about enemy of the people. Very, very clear. Very clear. What we want to be also very clear about is the importance of listening to the will of the American people. There was an election. It is important to respect our institution. It is important to respect the free and fair elections. And that's what this president is doing. Leading by example, and putting that aside and putting the American people first. But what he said still stands. And it's not just him. We should not just put this at the president. His own people said this. So I want to be really, really clear about that and not forget the facts. There are facts here that we should certainly also lift up as you're asking me these questions.
Okay. So, no, Joe Biden is not going to apologize for calling Donald Trump a threat to democracy, even if they did try to shoot him in the head and miss by hitting his ear. Unbelievable, the gall on this lady. This is why they lost, because they're so bitter. Unbelievable. Anyway, I want to get your reactions to Trump visiting the White House and visiting Congress, and we had the UFO testimony on Congress and so much more. Let's jump right in. I want to get to some of these calls right now. Let's go to Julie calling us from Sacramento, California, listening online. Go right ahead.
Oh, I made a long speech, and I thought your friend who listened to me was very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I couldn't get hold of you. I called many times. What I told him is the Jewish people, they need help, and then the Spanish and the black, and I prayed for 5 months that Trump went and did. But another thing, it was if the Jewish kids from Israel went and played games somewhere in the United States, and they got hit by those Arabs, and I listened to the radio. They would kick them.
Are you talking about what happened in Amsterdam?
Yes, they kicked them until they got decapitated.
I saw the video. It was very, very brutal. I think this is why it's so important for right now for the United States to use the influence that they have to weigh in on these types of things. And who better than Governor Mike Huckabee, I think, to really do that. He's been a strong supporter of Israel for a long time. But moreover, he's a very experienced politician. He ran for president. I think he won Iowa. And he was a governor. He's been around for a long time. He understands the media like no other. He's a radio guy. He's a talk show host. You know, if Huckabee is not going to be able to do his TV show, anybody listening, including God, because he's got a great show on TBN, can I be considered for like a fill-in host? I would love to host the Huckabee show. I love it. That's like a dream come true. I would absolutely love a show like that. And I love this show, but that's a TV show. It's a little bit different. And there's like a live band playing. I mean, that is so cool. It's kind of like the TV version of this show. Julie, I agree with you. I think Huckabee's a great choice. I think the Jewish people are resilient, and they are facing a lot of challenges. What we see coming out of Amsterdam, very disheartening. And the only way to put down this type of pogrom is to make sure that we call it out every time. Each and every time we see anti-Semitism, we can't sit here and make excuses and say, no, this is a critique on Netanyahu. No, this is actually a critique on the IDF and their tactics. In my opinion, those are smokescreens. Those are veiled attempts at anti-Semitism that they just shrouded in the secrecy of calling it something other than it is. But it's that nonetheless. Julie, thank you for your call. Shout out to everybody in Sacramento, California, listening to richvaldez.com. And we continue. I want to go to our buddy Doc. Doc is in Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Doc, go for it.
Rich, I want to thank you for taking my call. A couple comments. One on Ukraine. It's not going to be too nice, but I'm not worried about that because I trust my president. I voted for him 3 times. If there's anybody that could turn this country around, it's President Trump. I love the guy, and I support him 150%. I think all of his cabinet appointees should be approved. He has to drain the swamp. He's shown that by his cabinet appointees. Now, in Ukraine, if he wants to help the Ukrainian people out and give them freedom and peace and security and end the war, I'm all for him. If he wants to give territory to the Russians and let them stay in place, I hate to say this, but President Trump is inviting further aggression. He's going to have more problems down the road with Putin. Putin will not move on Poland. It's too big. He'll probably move on the Baltics. He doesn't want all of Ukraine. He can't hold it. He wants eastern Ukraine where the industry is. If he's got that under Russian control, he will move on the Baltics. And that's where President Trump could get in trouble. But if anybody can handle the problems facing this country, I have faith in him, Rich, and I'm for President Trump 150%.
I'm with you, Doc. I agree. I don't know that he's going to invite any more aggression from Putin. And the reason why is Putin made a statement this week. I think it was on Monday. Might have been Friday, but I think it was Monday, or at least I saw it Monday. And he basically said, President Trump has won, and he's made a request. He's indicated that he wants to end this war quickly, and we should take that very seriously. And Putin said that without making a slick remark like he typically does, where he smirks and smiles and, thinks he's slick. He didn't make any of those. He just said, I think that's something we should take seriously and have like a serious conversation about. So it lets me know that, look, I don't think he likes Trump. I really don't. I think a lot of people don't like Trump. I think, they go, I don't want to mess with this guy. This guy is a different story. As soon as Trump got reelected, the very next day, you had the president of the European Union, Van der Leyen, I believe is her name, and she comes out and she says, you know what, we're going to start buying liquid natural gas from the United States instead of from Russia. It's cheaper and it's better for us. We want to avoid Trump's tariffs, just like that. I mean, it was very simple. And again, they know if you don't play ball with him that way, he'll start saying, well, maybe we should have NATO pay their fair share. Maybe we should, and they don't want that either. Right? These people realize the United States plays a major role in a lot of things. And things that he tried to do the first time and was held back by hardcore deep staters that even the ones he didn't think were deep state, their deep stateness was coming out as they, as he pushed harder and harder against the establishment. There were people that just couldn't help but show their establishment roots. And I get it. I understand. I worked in government. I sense how it goes. All I can say is this. I think Trump has everybody's number, and he understands how to get what he needs to get done. And I'm all for it. Doc in Wilmington, Delaware, thank you, sir. God bless you. We're going to come right back with the rest of your calls and more. We got calls from Vero Beach, Florida, Arizona, Montana, Delaware, Virginia, Manila, Philippines, Lake Zurich, Illinois, Zanesville, Ohio, and so much more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue with our calls. Let us go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Go for it.
Hi there, Rich.
Hey.
Say, this Thanksgiving, on the 22nd, there's a new movie coming out for 2024 on a story about Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Sure.
And, yes, and it looks like a really good one. Lots of action, and it's a lot of drama. With the life of a German Lutheran Protestant theologian, an excellent writer, who didn't follow the philosophies that go totally with Martin Luther when he was writing books like The Jews and Their Lies. And his philosophy was the biggest threat and more than evil is stupidity. And Martin Luther did a lot of stupid things when he wrote that book. And during World War II, he kind of led a theological battle against Hitler and the Lutheran stupidity at the time, and that created all this evil and demonic force. And he sort of generated a philosophy of life of not being isolated and become more into community life and a spiritual well-being. And it was kind of a great thing what he's done. I've never read about him before in the history books when I went through high school back in the 60s, but it's a great, he's a great man, I tell you, but he was...
well, I can't wait to watch it. Don't give it all away, Frank. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, and have a great Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you between now and then. And let's see, we should definitely talk. We still have plenty of days to go. Where else do we go? I wanted to go to, excuse me, John, Vero Beach, Florida, WTTB. John, go right ahead.
Oh, it's an honor to be able to voice my statements on your show. God bless you. You're a brave man. I'm sure that you had a tremendous effect on all us voters to orchestrate this huge win. And sometimes and oftentimes I'll bet at your own peril because it's dangerous. Has been dangerous to tell the truth like you do. And also I want to say that Donald Trump is now my Uncle Donald. He's now my Uncle Donald. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah, Uncle Donald. You know, I think everybody has to. I hear in the Spanish community, people are calling him Papi Trump, and you know, I call him El Trompito. I think a lot of people have taken a lot of affection for Trump, and they always have, right? I think before he was a politician, I think people have always really just loved the character of who Donald Trump is. But I think a lot of people, I shouldn't say everybody, but I think a lot of people really felt like they were one with Trump. There was solidarity with Trump when they started arresting him and they started indicting him and they started bringing him into court and taking his money and trying to, you know, give him a bail. It was like $1 billion. And these things were outrageous to people. And then they tried to kill him. He got shot in the head. And when that bullet grazed his ear, I think a lot of people said, you know what? This is my guy. This is my guy. There's no way this guy is doing this because he's bored at home with his supermodel wife and his beautiful big building on Park Avenue. No, Fifth Avenue. I don't think that's it at all. I think people realize this guy's doing this because he really cares about this country. This really matters to him. And that's the key. I think when people saw how genuine he was and that this really mattered, it became important to them to get out there and vote. And I think that's why we see the popular vote numbers that we do and all of this momentum. John.
Yes, I have one thing to say in addition to that is the one thing they've got to do is put a clamp down on these corporations or companies that are hiring or harboring illegal aliens. They've got to put huge penalties on them to discourage them from hiring illegal aliens.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that is, in fact, going to happen. I do believe that will be I think the next course of events. People are going to really regret employing. It has to be. If that's not one of the next steps, then everything they do at the border will be ineffective because people will still make their way to the border. They'll figure out, you know what? Look, as long as I can get a job there, I'll be good. As long as I can make money there, I'll be good. The message has to be loud and clear that, the gig is up, can't do it no more. And I think once that becomes a matter of fact for people, when they realize this is it, I can't make it here like I used to. Things aren't as good as they used to be. The getting's not good in the U.S. like it once was. I think only at that point do we actually see the influx slow down. That, and of course, the aggressive deportations, because I think that's coming too. John, thanks again for your kind words. I appreciate it. Let's see, where do we go? Ken, Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Ken, go right ahead.
Hey, Mr. Valdez. Boy, it's an honor to speak with you. That gentleman
Likewise.
said you are a brave person.
Thank you,
I spoke on the talk radio station here, and it wasn't long. I was in prison. I was just trying to say, I hope Mr. Trump. What? No, really.
Wow.
We spawned Joe Biden. He came from Delaware. But anyhow, I hope
he's one of your neighbors.
Well, he's a career politician. But I hope Mr. Trump gets those other people they said in the insurrection. I hope he gets them out of there right away and restores them, and makes their life whole again. Those people the justice, they've imprisoned them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why it's so important for the Attorney General to be the right person. Without picking the right person for Attorney General, I think you're going to have a lot of issues with the continued weaponization of government against political enemies and et cetera. You got to make things fair. You've got to let people have their opinions and not break the law. And those that broke the law have to go, pay their price. But, I was watching something on the news about the guy who sat in Nancy Pelosi's chair. And again, I'm not trying to minimize anything, but he was laughing. I don't think he hit any cops on the way into her office to sit in the chair and take a selfie in her chair. I think he got something pretty excessive. I want to say multiple years in jail. And bottom line here is this is, like sneaking into a museum, right? Sneaking into a government building that at least that's how I see it. I don't think it's the end of the world, and I don't think he should have gotten years in jail for it. Maybe even a fine would have sufficed, and getting fingerprinted. But whatever. That's where we are, and I'm with you. Trump says he will make good on the J6ers. I expect that he will keep his word. Folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
There had been some discussion that President-elect Trump was having a little trouble making this final decision, or maybe this is the person he had in mind all along, but he has now nominated Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as Attorney General of the United States. He just wrote this on Truth Social. Quote, Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, trained at William & Mary College of Law, distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. Few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department.
That's a report from Fox News on the nomination of Matt Gaetz to become the next Attorney General in the Trump administration, Attorney General of the United States. And of course, people pushing back now saying he's a sexist, a misogynist. He's made a lot of bad statements over the years, this and that. Whatever. I've got one. I'm going to play it for you. You tell me what you think. Check this out.
It's just pure ugliness, and I see that ugliness on the inside. I see it on the outside. Even in the horrible circumstance where an abortion may happen, it is nothing to celebrate, and it is nothing to cheer.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
I can't tell you that's one of my favorites. And I saw it somewhere. Libs of TikTok posted that today as one of their favorites. And I said, I'm absolute agreement with that. Absolutely outstanding. So good, right? And again, you heard it. But just to clarify, anybody who might have been chewing and didn't hear it or had a fire truck blaring by you, I will translate for you. The reporter asked Matt Gaetz, who's talking about abortion, and he says there's a lot of ugliness that goes into along with this type of thinking. And she says, is it safe to say, do you think that these people are overweight and ugly? And he said, yes. And she said, well, what about the people who think that's offensive? He said, be offended. I can't help but laugh at that. That is terrific. That's how you shut down the critics. So kudos to Matt Gaetz. We've had him on a couple of times. We'll invite him back. And I'm sure he's very, very busy now as the potential next AG of the United States. But I can't wait. I just can't wait to see it. And I'd love to see his testimony for confirmation. It's going to be a hoot. Anyway, hoots, let's go back to your calls. I want to go to, very quickly, I want to go to Gil in Manila, Philippines. Gil, very quickly, go right ahead.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to say two quick things. First, about Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know if you're aware, she was born on American Samoa. She's a Pacific Islander. And I've given her as an example, a role model for our daughter who's going into the U.S. Army. And
nice.
What's it? Yeah. And as far as Jim Bohannon, I made a statement on his last program, and I used the quote, excuse me, old soldiers never die, they just fade away. And that's been the case with Jim.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's exactly how it is. And I hope that he honestly, I hope he never fades away. The influence that Bohannon had was great, and we celebrated the second anniversary of his passing yesterday, and it was an honor to do it. Gil, thank you for your call, my brother. I appreciate it. God bless. And let us continue. Sarah, Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go for it.
Hey, I really appreciate your defense of the January 6th defendants and pointing out the crazy sentences they got for the crime that they committed. January 6th was a massive exercise in civil disobedience that was way far more peaceful than the riots, the left-wing riots that preceded it. And many more people were killed, property damaged, people hurt, cops hurt, and yet Democrat politicians were setting up funds to bail out, George Floyd rioters. And then they came down hard on January 6th because Democrats knew they were going to try to get a tyranny going, and they have to send a message to their political enemies, don't you dare resist. And it was just a really Stalin-esque type of show trial they had. So I appreciate you for pointing that out, the discrepancy in sentencing.
Oh, yeah. And not only was there a discrepancy in the sentencing, but there was so much discrepancy in the footage that they released, right? They released all the footage that looked like this was a massive, violent takeover of our Capitol. And again, this is what the media played on loop. And to their credit, they were very effective at making that case. But when they finally declassified the other information and then Speaker McCarthy released it, it really told a different story, that this was not some sort of, thousands of people storming the gates of the Capitol, but more like a handful that were having this altercation with the police, likely led by guys like Ray Epps, who were FBI informants, perhaps working for the FBI to create such a commotion. And the rest of these people were kind of led in and led to believe they could be there. And that's why they were, in many ways, very peaceful, right? Taking pictures as they were sitting down with their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, the guy with the horns on walking around with a lectern and a podium. I mean, definitely unruly and disorderly persons type behavior, but not an insurrection, right? There was no armed insurrection going on, but they made it seem that way and kind of led people in there. And when you got people that are charged with the charge of parading, but they're told to go through the building this way or whatever, it's going to slow things down and people are going to be around a lot longer. So, I'm not going to fully say that's exactly what happened. I'm just giving you some of the observations I've seen that it looks like these things may be happening. And to me, that's enough to give that benefit of the doubt where we don't go ahead and just outlandishly say, you did this and you did that. I think you got to believe people. We've got to have some sort of innocence until proven guilty. And that includes the people that we don't agree with, right? The people that we lock up at the border, the people that we're locking up that are blamed for trafficking and everything else. You got to give them that benefit of the doubt. Due process is what the country's built on, whether we like it or not. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your call. WBIW in the building, Indiana in the house. Let us continue. Where do I want to go? I want to go to John, Lake Zurich, Illinois. John, go right ahead.
Hi, Mr. I just want to, I called you before elections, and I'm saying that Christopher Columbus should be included next time when his anniversary comes. He should be included to Founding Fathers. He was a courageous guy, and so were our Founding Fathers.
All right. Well, thank you for your thoughts there, John. I appreciate it. Shout out to Lake Zurich, Illinois, WLS in the building. Not sure we would include Columbus as a founding father, but always happy to hear your opinions on that. And let's go to Tony giving us a call from Montreal, Canada, listening online, richvaldez.com. Tony, go right ahead.
Rich, it's a pleasure talking to you. I love your show, and anytime I can listen to you, I listen all night, and you're an amazing talk show host and one of the top guys I've ever listened to. Listen, I want to shout out to all the veterans, because in Canada we have Remembrance Day on the 11th day of the 11th month. As you do, you call it Veterans Day. In Canada we call it Remembrance Day. But if you can believe this, Rich, the Prime Minister of Canada, who's a wokester, who's a left-winger, who's a liberal, he decided that the chaplains representing all ethnic religious groups could not have a prayer over the unknown tomb of the soldiers that died in multiple wars for the Canadian troops. And as far as I'm concerned, Rich, that's an insult to all Allied veterans. So if Canada was in World War I, II, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, and every conflict in the Middle East where we have been shoulder to shoulder with the American troops, that is an insult to American troops and to Canadian troops and to any allied troop around the world. I don't understand how a government can tell a chaplain of the Canadian Army that he cannot do a prayer that is non-denominational for all religious creeds, for all of the dead that died for our country and for freedom. And I figure that the American people should know that, and that should be that's Rich. That's an insult to not only Canadian vets. It's an insult to all vets, no matter what country they're from.
I think you're right, Tony, and I think that's I would say it's shocking, but it doesn't shock me. It's disappointing, but not surprising coming from Trudeau. Whether they're hating on America or they're hating on their own people. It's a disgrace, right? I mean, if people served in uniform, you want to acknowledge them, you should. My brother was a Marine, and God rest his soul. He died last year, just right before Veterans Day. And I can tell you, I think that's a real disgrace. You shouldn't do that on Remembrance Day. You shouldn't do that on Veterans Day. People should be doing just that, remembering the fallen, appreciating them for the service they've given, and moving on and being a good person. And sadly, your guy, Trudeau, doesn't seem to know how to do that. He must be a Democrat at heart. Tony, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. God bless you, man. And thank you for your kind words about the show and me being here. I appreciate it. And folks, taking a pause right here, coming right back. The rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your thoughts, your calls, and so much more. I want to go to Lance, Kalispell, Montana. Go right ahead.
Hey, thank you, Rich. Hey, first of all, I've got a heaping pile of cold crow and a dull spork with which I'm willing to eat after postulating what my October surprise might have been. And you were right, and I'm grateful and thankful that you were right.
Amen.
But more importantly, and secondly, to the point, one of the victories that has come out of the Trump election that I don't hear anybody really speak about is we don't have to listen to Karine Jean-Pierre anymore. And I pray to God that we get somebody with not only a sense of integrity and honesty, but that is relatable and not condescending to her fellow media.
Yeah, well, listen, I think you're right. And what do you think about Alina Habba, President Trump's civil litigation lead, his lawyer on all those civil cases? What do you think? I think she'd be great as a press secretary.
Let me put aside my personal crush for her and her just intellect and her presence and just the amazing power of woman that she is. And yes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I agree with that.
I think she'd be a rock star. And Lance, thank you. I appreciate the color commentary. You're always so good to talk to. Lance in Kalispell, Montana, KOFI. Very gracious. And we continue. Let's go to Jane calling us from WGDJ, Albany area, New York. Go right ahead.
Yep. Hey, Rich, how are you?
Good.
First of all, I want to say, whatever that woman said about Trump, forget it. I think we are blessed to have Trump. I think his most outstanding quality is that he is not a typical politician. And I think he is an awesome guy. And he has loyal followers, like Elon Musk, his very loyal family, which is great. And I thank you for taking more calls. I think that's so great that you're going to do that, because none of us, Rich, ever miss you, ever. We love your show, and in all honesty, and this is going to sound corny, but I think you are just about the best out there, truly, and I mean that. And we never miss you, and we love you, and you're one of the good guys, kiddo. So
thank you, Jane. I appreciate that. I'm very humbled by it, and it's very, very kind of you to say. Shout out to WGDJ. Jane, the check is in the mail. Thank you so much. I'm going to pause right here, come right back to the Pauls, the Pats, and everybody else that's online. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
All right, here we go. Let's go to Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Paul?
Good evening, Rich. Sometimes it's nice to gloat. And I did make this prediction a couple months ago. I said it will be Trump landslide. So I'm gloating a little bit, and I'm so happy. And, the Democrats got an early Thanksgiving. They got their turkeys deep fried and baked. So I think they're done. And, they
got their clocks clean.
I'll use this as a boxing analogy. You got knocked out, man. That's all there is to it. And this guy that's going to be like the border czar or something, I don't know much about him. But, man, have you just looked at that guy? He looks like
I'm not messing with Tom Homan.
I'm telling you. Yeah, and we got Tiny Tim Tulips Kamala. She's gone, so let's be thankful for that. And I've seen so many people that are so happy and relieved, and I'm amazed, and I had an amazing feeling that this would happen. So congratulations, America. I'm proud of you. You made me think that America does know what they're talking about.
Amen, Paul. You said it well. Congratulations, America. And I'm so grateful to the American people and the 75 million people that voted for Trump. I'm grateful to Trump for taking that bullet and showing America what he's made of. And I'm grateful to everybody that was involved in making this thing happen. It was all hands on deck effort, and it worked. Paul in Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ in the building. Thank you, sir. And let's go to Arizona, KFNX, our buddy Pat. Go for it, brother.
Hey, Rich, thank you. It's so disheartening. These people, the ones who lost, they have to resort to name calling still. Did you see what that woman referred to as Trump supporters as child molesters? And I'm just telling you.
Oh, yeah, Debbie. She's so kind, and then she threw in a little jab.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I tell you what, they cannot lose right, and they cannot win right. They should take a chill pill, and they should just listen to you. Don't call in, just listen, and maybe they'll get some smarts. Because I tell you, I'm getting so tired of Joe Biden not apologizing for calling Trump an enemy of democracy when he met him at the White House today. I mean, so many people with the name calling, and it's getting stupid. It's like kids on a school ground, and they're picking on each other, and when they lose, they just go screaming home to mama, and that's what they did. They lost, and the American people won. For once, the American people, and they'll finally realize they won also. So, Rich, thank you.
They did. You're right. Oh, well, thank you, Pat. I appreciate your kind words. And you're right. America's won this round, and I'm grateful for it. Shout out to everybody in Arizona, KFNX in the building. Folks, that's it for me. Hasta la próxima. Until the next time, America, take care, good night, and God bless you. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm Rich Valdez.